to make a difference. We see you, we hear you, and we appreciate all that you do.
Let's start with a viral message going around. Quote, vast majority of people who died had ibuprofen Advil in their system. This message is fake.
We just bought 20 dust masks for $97.
Are you doing this to help people, or are you doing this to make money, or both?
Both. Take this email sent to the Verify team. Is it safe to have your house cleaned by outside workers? The best practice is to limit guests to emergencies only.
We know things are changing every day, but we're here with you. Continuous COVID-19 coverage during prime time. We're committed to giving you facts, not fear. On 11Alive News Primetime, weeknights from 8 to 11 on WATF.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Today at noon on 11Alive.
We are seeing that lack of smell or altered taste can be a symptom.
We answer your coronavirus-related medical questions. Because 11Alive is where Atlanta speaks.
Televised newscasts not enough for you? Get even more at 11Alive's YouTube channel, where you'll find uncut interviews, extended body cam footage, live streams of Atlanta's biggest trials, and more. Subscribe to 11Alive today.
In times of great uncertainty, some things become more clear. The things we take for granted, the people we depend on daily. Here at 11Alive, we'd like to say thank you. First responders, medical staff, sanitation workers, truck drivers, postal workers, and every brave Georgian doing their part to make a difference. We see you, we hear you, and we appreciate all that you do.
Let's start with a viral message going around. Quote, vast majority of people who died had ibuprofen Advil in their system. This message is fake.
We just bought 20 dust masks for $97.
Are you doing this to help people, or are you doing this to make money, or both?
Both. Take this email sent to the Verify team. Is it safe to have your house cleaned by outside workers? The best practice is to limit guests to emergencies only.
We know things are changing every day, but we're here with you. Continuous COVID-19 coverage during prime time. We're committed to giving you facts, not fear. On 11Alive News Primetime, weeknights from 8 to 11 on WATF.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Good afternoon, I'm Cheryl Preheim. We are waiting for the Secretary of State's office for a decision Georgia elections update. Today we've got new information from Floyd County, where it was discovered 2,600 ballots were not included in the first count. Floyd County says now it had a scanner issue at a polling location where the undercount happened. The Floyd County Board of Elections says this was a technical issue caused by human error. So we're going to hear now from Gabriel Sterling with the Secretary of State's office for an update, joining us by Zoom.
Floyd County to basically rescan all the early votes, back those out of the election night reporting system and their election management system, and then put it back in after the rescanning. It also looks like they sort of mismanaged their provisional votes as well. So we need to allow recording. Walter, Ari, can you take care of the allowing recording for this for other people right now? I'm not sure how to do that on my end. We are making a recording of this too. So they will be doing that hopefully today. I know they're trying to get their board together to handle the logistics of that. And that will put those things back into what we call the RTR, which is the results and tally reporting, which then goes into the election night reporting. So that's where that stands right now. I mentioned yesterday, which wasn't, I think it kind of got lost in all this, that we did open up 2 investigations into Fulton County. And with that, we are going to, let's see, we're going to be putting the new results in, which will be aggregated into the results you see on the actual SOS site. And that will hopefully happen today. So real quick, are we on the chat side? Are y'all allowing recording yet? Ari, have you been able to accomplish that?
No, not yet. Still looking into it.
Huh.
We're recording on our end though. So we'll have the recording.
You're a host. I know we can, let me see 1 second. Let me do something. If I can, doesn't look like I have the ability to do that. This is technology. Hold on. Let's let Miles unmute. Maybe he knows a button to press. He's been waving his hands a lot. Miles, you can unmute now. What do you got?
I feel very special. Thank you very much. Would you go to your participant list, and you have to individually allow recording for each of the participants. And there's a little series of dots there that you can pull, and it'll give you allow recording to each of us, and we can all record. Okay.
Okay. Ari, Walter, can you take?
Who's the host? The host has to do this, by the way.
Or am I the host?
Yeah, I can do it. Post if you want to put a record, post in the chat, and then I'll go to your window and allow you to record.
Let's just let everybody allow to record.
We all want to record. I think that's a given.
Yeah.
So
I'll just let everybody go.
Now, don't you feel better that we all are living the same lives right now? This is the reality of our Zoom world right now. And obviously, this is very important information that everyone is very interested in, not just in the state of Georgia, but all over the country because of the retally happening here and the immense scrutiny that the state of Georgia is under. So we are monitoring that as they work out the technical issue. They want to make sure there is a recording of it so that, of course, anyone can go back and get the information as needed. So we will pop back on as soon as they get the technical kinks worked out of that audio recording on the Zoom. Right now, Georgia's 16 electoral counts have not officially been distributed to President-elect Joe Biden, of course. On Friday, NBC, as you remember, declared him the apparent winner based on the votes that had been tallied in Georgia, pushing Joe Biden to 306 electoral votes if, in fact, Georgia's 16 are included in that count. The state says that Floyd County ballots have not impacted the final results, so they are looking at those 2,600 votes that had not been in the initial tally in Forsyth County, but they would not impact the final results. President-elect Joe Biden, with those votes included, still leads in Georgia by a margin of more than 13,000 votes overall. And we have been getting a little more information about what happened in Floyd County. Melanie Conrad with the Floyd County Board of Elections said that there was an issue with a scanner at a polling location where that undercount occurred. That's going to be the starting point of the investigation. Basically, a technical issue was caused by a human error. It was an issue of an unloaded memory card, so there wasn't data on the memory card put into the computer that would have counted those votes. The distribution of those votes were 1,643 votes for President Trump, 865 for President-elect Joe Biden, and 16 for the Libertarian candidate. So the net gain for President Trump was 778 votes. Again, that still does not change the overall distribution enough to swing a change in Georgia. So as it stands, with those currently tallied, Vice President-elect still leads in Georgia by 13,300. Now, right before the question about the Zoom recording from Gabriel Sterling with the Secretary of State's office, he had mentioned that they are opening up 2 separate investigations in Fulton County. So he'll tell us more about that and many other questions the state is facing. Let's check now back in with Gabriel Sterling.
To allow for the rescanning of all of the early votes. We will back out they will back out the results that they have in election night reporting and their RTR, which is the results tally reporting, and then put the new results in, add that to the election management system, pull that out and add it to the election night reporting system, or ENR. And that will even out those numbers. Now, what will happen there, since we've seen the raw numbers, and those are unofficial, obviously, was 14,156 was the deficit that the president was facing against former Vice President Biden. And there was a net pickup of 778 votes, it appears, on this one. So the new deficit will be 13,378. That's the outcome of that. It does not affect the runoff. The number of votes are actually very similar to the president and Senator Perdue as to what they need to avoid the runoff or win the election. So they're kind of tracked very close together. So it's about the same differential now that Senator Perdue would have to get to meet that issue. So that is that particular thing in Floyd County. It is being addressed. The audit worked. It found the issue. They were very troubled on these things. There was an additional issue with how they scanned their provisional ballots. It looks like they had 2 batches and they scanned 3 batches, which means they have a third more provisional ballots in the election night reporting than they should. We don't know the outcomes of those, but those will also be rescanned. Another thing I mentioned yesterday that's kind of overshadowed by the Floyd County issue was in Fulton County, we were opening up 2 specific investigations. One was how they handled the toilet leak, water leak, whatever you want to call it, at State Farm Arena, what was done, how that was handled, chain of custody, all those items, because there's a lot of confusion around that. And secondarily, how they were dealing with monitors and people along those lines. There's some other specific issues we've been talking, that we had a consent decree with them, and our monitors had some issues that he wanted to point out. There were some chain of custody issues surrounding the absentee ballots. Let's see. They were bounced around rooms, and it's just generally bad management. The same things we saw in Floyd with bad management, we see similar things in Fulton. We are investigating it. And the hour and a half, it looks like we pulled the videos from State Farm Arena to see if there was actually a time when they were scanning and processing when the monitors had either been told to leave or understood they were supposed to leave. So we're investigating that as well. It looks like they were violating the consent order that we had already entered with them by not giving credit for voting in a timely manner, which caused some more confusion on election day and prior to election day. So Fulton County will continue to be investigated for those fronts and for any potential violations of the consent order we entered into after the June election, but prior to the November election. I want to go over some of the statistics again that we saw concerning absentee ballot and signature matching. The state of Georgia entered a consent decree that essentially did one thing and one thing only. It allowed for 11 days from an election, instead of giving 3 days to inform a voter there was an issue with their ballot, it's down to 24 hours when you're within 11 days of the election. That is the one and only thing that consent order addressed in any real way. And just to give you some context around this, in 2016, there were 580 ballots that were missing or had inaccurate oath statements, which is a signature basically, out of 246,000. In 2018, there was 454 out of 284,000. And in 2020, it's 2,011 out of 1.3 million. They all bounce around about 0.15%. So this is pretty consistent on this. One of the numbers you're seeing out there is a 3% rejection rate versus this 0.5% rejection rate, but they're comparing apples to oranges. That is including ballots. The biggest chunk of ballots that are rejected or counted as rejected showed up after the 7 p.m. deadline. That is where the majority of rejections come from. But for signature matches, always run around 0.15 to 0.2%. That is the normal thing we've seen in Georgia for years. And we also have a new situation now where Republicans and Democrats alike get these lists of people who have absentee ballots to cure, and they send teams around to help them cure their ballots. We saw a lot of that, especially in Fulton, because there were concerns that this suddenly showed up. But they had the photo ID, they had photocopies of the photo IDs, they matched up. So we saw a lot of that curing occurring. But it is unfortunate. We're still seeing management issues. They did better, but they still have some major issues that are very big concerns for us. Another thing that we wanted to make sure we've been talking about, we're working on certifying this election, and then we're going to have to move into, we have to do this so we can get the UACAVA ballots out on Saturday to follow the federal law, to be that 45 days out from the January 5th election. So we've got to get this thing certified. We feel like we are on a good schedule right now with the audit. We are following the law. We are following the process. And this is what I've been saying from the beginning. The secretary has instructed us. Follow the law, and it's just process, process, process. I mean, this is a very well-defined item we're going through. The audit was in the law. We are following that. And it allows us to do a hand count. And let me, again, on the hand count, there are people out there, conspiracy theorists, are saying, oh, the QR code is flipping votes and everything. The whole point of the hand count is you look at what's on the ballot, either the hand-marked ballot, the 1.3 million of those, or the 3.7 million, so the ballots came from BMDs or the QR codes. You're looking at the name. Those counters are looking at the name. They're handing it to the person sitting next to them, saying they're looking at the name, they're putting it in the stacks, and they are physically counting them as human beings to assure that what was scanned is actually correct. And so far, we're seeing that in the vast majority of the counties. Some of them are off by 1 or 2, which you expect when human beings do this. So the audit's going well. We're at 4.7 million out of the little over 5 million votes that were cast. So it's Tuesday. We have till midnight on Wednesday. Now, the first step is this physical counting process. They have to get through that process, and then we have a quality control process to make sure, did you put your data entry in correct? Are your tally sheets correct? So there's a lot of moving parts to this, but Voting Works is here on the ground. We have, a lot of people who are helping to make sure this is a tight process. Many of the counties are coming back at spot dead on, that they have no more votes, no less votes, and the vote counts are coming out the same. Other counties, the one thing I've seen for a lot of these elections directors is they are perfectionists. If they're off by 3, they want to dig in and figure out why they're off by 3. And it could be as simple as, if you had an absentee ballots and 2 of them stuck together and went through the machine together at one time, and you're never going to necessarily be able to know the difference on that, because those are the kind of things you see in an election. Another thing I want to make clear, there will have been illegal votes cast. We know that. In every single election in the history of mankind, there will be illegal votes cast. We have not seen any evidence of 13,378 of those cast. We know that there are some double voters. We dug into some of that and realized that it was entry errors by counties where they tagged people the wrong way. Another thing that we've seen is potential felon voters, but some of those people might be in a position where their rights are fully restored to vote. So we have investigators physically tracking those down. And understand, when we have these things, as an example, when we found the double voters in the June and August elections, we send investigators to interview this. That's 1,200 interviews. We have 24 investigators. 2 of them are specifically tasked with just election stuff under this state election board. So it's going to take some time to get through all this. But again, we've seen nothing that indicates that there is a high percentage, or such a high percentage, that it would change the outcome of the vote. Our goal is to have the cleanest possible election. And if anybody has any reports of actual irregularities, our investigators will investigate. Another thing that I want to make sure that the secretary is clear on with everybody is we've again seen more Democrats and people, even in California, talk about coming to Georgia and voting in our elections. Understand, if your goal is to come here just to vote in the election and go back to your home state of residency, you're violating state law. And secondarily, this is another potential case that I know may come up. If somebody moves from one state where they cast a vote for Senate into another state to try to cast another vote for the same body that will be seated, that would potentially violate the United States Constitution, because you can't get 2 different sets of votes to seat a body that will be seated in January. So there'll potentially be some issues along that front as well. So our goal is to have the cleanest and fairest election we can and give people the understanding and faith that the outcome is actually the outcome, that the winner is the winner, and the person who came in second place came in second place. Now, to get ahead of some of the other questions, this hand audit we're doing right now is for the state to move to certification. Under our state law, the second place finisher, if they are within 0.5 or lower percent of the vote of the first place finisher, may ask for a recount. And that recount would follow our state election board rules. And essentially, we've already procured a high-speed, high-capacity central scanner for every single county because we did a pretty good job of negotiating and getting the prices down on the original deal that we did to get our new voting system to bring paper to Georgia. So what they would do is they would create a test deck. And as an example, you'd say you'd have 50 for Trump, 40 for Biden, and 10 for Joe Jorgensen. And you do a mix of ballot marking device and hand marked ballots. And you would run those through that scanner. You get the report, the hope and intention, you're verifying that the scanner is counting properly. And it would be 50 for Trump, 40 for Biden, and then 10 for Jorgensen. Then you clear that out. You put your tally back to 0. And then you scan every single ballot again through those things. The large counties have multiples of these. And one other thing I want to go back, we are sending some additional high-speed scanners to Floyd County so they can get through the process of rescanning more quickly than just doing it on a single scanner. So that we are getting the logistical part of that done to help them get their results up more quickly. Because we know we want to get these things done. We feel like we're on a good path. The audit is moving at pace. And by the fact that we're down to the last 300,000 or so of the hand counting, we feel very good that we can look for any issues, look for any anomalies, find where they might be, correct them on the data side, correct them on the counting side, and then have the full audit available by our deadline of Wednesday at midnight, and then be able to move to the certification phase going into Friday so we can get those UACAVA ballots out, the military ballots on Saturday. So with that, I will open up to your questions. And the way we're going to do this is Walter and Ari are kind of going to go through your chat or look through your raised hands, and we'll try to unmute people one at a time. So we don't want people kind of talking over each other. So let's start off with that, okay? So what do we got, Ari or Walter?
Actually, it's a little quicker if people raise their hand. Use a little raise their hand app.
I see Miles physically raising his hand, so maybe you can unmute him. Oh, Stephen, he's first. He got it. Can you unmute Stephen?
Oh, let's see. I got Miles. You have to unmute yourself.
I just did. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah.
Excellent. Excellent. So, Gabe, if just clarify a point for me.
Sure.
The risk limiting audit, which it's been called a recount, but it really isn't a recount, et cetera. But what you're still calling it an audit, correct?
It is a hand audit, yes.
Okay. Will the numbers that you get to by midnight tomorrow, will they in any way impact or change the numbers you certify on the 20th?
The intent right now, as you know, an audit is there to verify the results that were reported through the election management systems. Knowing that human beings are the flawed part of this process, the intent would be we would say the numbers, and also state law requires we report by precinct, and there's no way to get precinct level data out of the Arlo tool. So we are not changing the results based on the hand count, but it is verifying the results that have been reported. That is the intent we're following right now because it follows state law, and it keeps us in a clean way able to have the precinct level results still as our final certified results.
So it won't change the actual certified number?
Correct. Now, there are people who are still doing onesie, twosie things, and obviously the Floyd County thing will do that. They have the ability to go through, make sure they have all their provisionals in, everything's in right. But for the most part, we're not going to see any real changes moving forward other than that Floyd County thing, more than likely.
And Gabe, you're good at explaining this. And I think the thing I heard most frequently as I ran into observers as I went around the 3 or 4 counties over the past few days is why aren't they verifying signatures? And I tried to explain to people, given my limited knowledge of all this, that happened a long time ago and that there are no signatures on ballots. Could you just explain and clear this up? Because there seems to be a lot of confusion on the secrecy of ballots and whether ballots have any identification on them.
Okay, thanks for the question, Miles. Essentially, the process is this. You make a request. There's basically 2 signature verifications or an identification verification that happens. You make a request, say you do it on paper. You are signing that request. That gets mailed in. Elections officials at the county level look at your signature, then they look either in the ENET system, because there are signatures that are stored there to verify it, Or if they can't have an e-net system, some of them have a local drive where they've scanned signatures that are attached to the voter file there. And if they don't have either of those, then they literally will go to the old paper records that they keep on file essentially forever to compare the signatures. That's step one, and that's for the request side. The other identification side is that if you use the absentee ballot portal, you're using your driver's license number as a unique PIN identifier that allows us to say, yes, this is a person, we know who they are, their driver's license is attached to the voter registration form. So that's the other way you can get the county to send you an absentee ballot. Step two is you get that ballot, you make your choices, you fold it up, you put it in the secrecy sleeve, then you put that secrecy sleeve, the secrecy envelope into the actual return envelope. On the outside of the return envelope, there is an oath. And on the oath, you're basically saying, I am who I say I am, I'm following the law, and this is, me, I'm not committing any fraud. So they sign that. That gets sent back to the county. So the county then has additional, they have the new request form signature you just sent them, plus they have all the other signatures to compare that to. And that is where their verification takes place at that time. And then they go into the voter registration system. If the signatures match and say, this is a match, we have now accepted this ballot, they then remove the secrecy envelope from the ballot. They are separated at that point because Georgia state constitution requires ballot privacy and ballot secrecy. So there's no way to tie the actual ballot back to that original signature anymore because Georgia law does not allow for that. Now, they do keep those envelopes on record for 2 years. They keep those requests on record for 2 years to go back and look if there's anything on discovery. And if somebody wants to file a lawsuit and go look at those things, there's nothing stopping them from doing that if they can show any evidence to do that. So right now, there's nothing in the law for this office or the counties to go back and recertify signatures that they already certified. So I hope that is a good enough explanation. People understand where we stand on this. And one of the things we did this year is we brought in representatives of the Georgia Bureau of Investigation to come in and do additional training for the county elections officials on how you do signature match. But one of the things I think the secretary wants to look at is a less subjective way to identify voters, because it is subjective. I really like the portal. We like the portal because that is objective. Do you know this driver's license number? Do you not know this driver's license number? Is it in your pocket? Is it not in your pocket? It's a really good way to do those kind of things. So we were going to look at ways to potentially tighten it up and take away the subjectivity of this in the long term. So, but thank you for that question. Who's next?
Quinn Scanlon has got her hand up.
Okay.
Hey, Gabe. I think I have a question that many others are having as well. I'm pretty positive that the Secretary of State's office has been saying that the results of the audit is what would be certified. So is this different now that it's going to be the original results?
It's a little bit different now because we were looking at the law, trying to understand the best way to follow the law and make sure that we got the results in that would be there and follow the law. There's not really a way to say we'll replace this. Other states have specific things saying the outcomes of the audits will be the new certified results. We don't have that in Georgia right now. That may be something we look at doing, that if you do a recount like this, a hand audit like this, that this may be the final number. But right now, the whole intent of an audit is it's going to verify the results we already saw. And especially just logistically, there's no way to get these results out of Arlo, which is the tool we're using, and at the precinct level, because that's where you need to report your results to, is the precinct level. So that's going back and forth with lawyers. This is the first time we've done this. First time we had paper in 20 years. So there was an opinion. We thought we were going to go down a path, and then we kind of rethought it and said, that the more legally stable way is to do it this way.
Okay, and then just one quick follow-up. I think based on what you said previously, I'm understanding correctly, but you're sending more scanners to Floyd County because they are not hand counting, again, all the early voted ballots. They are rescanning every single
their audit. They have done the physical part of their audit. Right now, we discovered an issue, so we're scanning those ballots, all of the early ballots back in. And it looks like all of the provisional ballots back in. So that we'll back those two things out of the election management system and put these results in as the final results, because obviously they need to be correct. And the audit found this issue. And the fastest way to do that is to throw some additional scanners out. They should be able to do it today, but they have to have their their elections board say, yes, do that. So they're trying to pull those people together right now. I don't know where they stand in terms of timing.
Okay. And just by early voted ballots, you mean the in-person ones, correct? Not the absentee?
Absolutely. Yes. Early vote. Understand when I say early vote, that's absentee in person. That is the ballots that were done on the ballot marking devices in person in the 3-week plus one mandatory Saturday period of time.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you, Quinn. Who's next?
Okay, M. Walker has had a hand up.
Hi, it's Amaral Walker with CNN. Hey there, Gabe.
Hey there.
So you were mentioning that the vast majority of counties are basically going to be reporting minor to no discrepancies with their hand recount. Will the Secretary of State be releasing the numbers, say, hey, the overall number discrepancy is, 600 votes or 600 margin?
Yes, we will add that, if I can do this, quarantine time. We will be releasing all the results of the audit. In fact, we're getting them to scan in their tally sheets so that everybody can go look at them. We've been encouraged by the transparency of so many counties live streaming it, putting it on Facebook Live, and letting in as many monitors as physically can work while still having the room be functional. So,
and how soon do you think
we possibly can with that? So there will be a county by county level plus a statewide level of where you're off. And there's two things to be off on: number of ballots, and then there's also the potential to be off within the count itself for the presidential race. Those are two separate numbers that will both be reported at the end of the process.
If the counties all finish today with uploading, the data entry, when do you anticipate we could see these numbers? Let's say if they finish today.
I think by trying to get through the quality control process of the audit, we will probably push into tomorrow. But my hope is we can, we might need every minute of that midnight deadline. Maybe we'll be done by dinner, because it's a lot of counties. It's a lot of ballots. Like I said, a bunch of the counties are off the table. They're good to go. But some of the larger ones, there are going to be some discrepancies, so they got to figure out why they're there. And mostly, when you see these kind of things, you'll see, as an example, there's one county right now that I think they're undercounted by 394, which just happens to be 2 batches. That's the exact number of them when they're doing it. So they've got the 2 batches. They're gonna hand count those and add them to the totals. But that's the kind of stuff you see after you do your data entry. We saw a couple places where they inverted the data entry, and they easily saw that, so they fixed that. But it takes time. It's just a process, and we're going to continue to follow the process, follow the rules, and follow the law. But once we get to that final number, we will release all that, plus all of the backup data, the tally sheets, everything.
Could you say, though, right now, the majority or 60% have come back with spot on, no differences at all?
I'll have to go pull up the Arlo tool to see where we're at right now, because it changes over time. And I don't have an answer to that, but I will try to, maybe at our 4 o'clock conference, I might be able to give you a better answer for that one if that works.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Raul Bali has his hand up.
Okay.
Hey,
Dave, technical question. So right now on the website, counties had to certify the results by last Friday, and there's still 10 counties. Is that just a matter of it not being in the tool yet, or do you have 10 counties that have not certified by Friday?
We have 10 counties that didn't get their stuff done. We were, as you noticed yesterday, we had a bunch of them finish up because a lot of them, they're all doing a lot of things at once.
So you can say all 159 counties have certified.
I actually can't say that yet, because we've tried to talk to them to make sure they have before we say that.
Okay.
So that's what we're trying to get to.
So when those results, and your expectation is Floyd is going to pull their numbers back, reload. Mm-hmm. And so then when that number, that certified 159 pops up with Floyd done, those will be the results for the state of Georgia that you will certify later this week.
That is the intent right now, Raul. But I got a quick question. Are you in COVID quarantine? Because that hair, man, come on. It's going.
I've got 2 virtual classrooms behind me going right now, and my wife on a conference too.
Okay. All right. Who do we got next?
Stephen Fowler has signed up for a long time.
So Gabe, risk limiting audits are supposed to prove that the correct winner won, not look at the exact margins. And so is that, just so I'm clear, the rationale for why the original county certification totals will stand, because an RLA doesn't examine margins, but rather the correct winner?
It's really threefold. What you just said, the whole point of an audit is to prove the outcome is correct. 2, our law requires that we report by precinct, which you cannot do in the Arlo tool. And this logistically is more defensible under our law and physically easier to do, because the RTR, which is the returns tally reporting system, and our ENR, which is the election reporting system, are built to give that precinct level data that we need to have for everybody to follow our law. So that is the rationale behind that, yes. There are several rationales, but those are the 3 basics. All right, who's next?
W. Brewer.
Hi, this is Wes Brewer with CNN. Thanks so much, Gabriel. Appreciate it. Regarding what Secretary of State Raffensperger said yesterday regarding his conversation with Senator Graham about invalidating absentee ballots, Mr. Raffensperger said that staffers were on the call with him. Were you or anybody else present on the Zoom meeting?
Yes, I was.
In the room?
It was a phone call, so.
Can you tell us what you heard, Mr. Senator Graham said?
Listen, the back and forth, I was only on for part of it, so I didn't hear it all because I had to go do a CNN interview with Aaron. So what I heard was basically discussions about absentee ballots, and if there was a percentage of signatures that weren't really truly matching, is there some point where you get to where you could say, if somebody went to a courtroom, could say, we'll throw out all these ballots because we have no way of knowing because the ballots are separated. And that was partially what was going on. I could see how Senator Graham viewed it one way and Secretary Raffensperger viewed it one way. But, our job in this state is to follow the law and follow the process. And that's what we continue to do. There's no physical ability for this office to do anything along those lines. And if somebody wanted to go that route, they could go the court route.
Would you say, how would you characterize his request? Is that something that was unseemly of the process, or you say he saw it one way and you all saw it another way?
I'm not going to get into Senator Graham's mind. And I'm not going to get into Secretary Raffensperger's mind. I think they are both discussing. I can see how both sides of that could potentially be correct. But the president's going to continue to fight. His supporters will continue to fight. Our job is to continue to follow the law. And we were answering process questions. That's what we're doing on the call.
Thank you.
Okay, next is Julie Jester, excuse me.
Hi, thanks for doing this call. My question is, have any other Republicans, either within Georgia or outside the state, reached out to Secretary Raffensperger with concerns or privately in support of the actions he's taken in Georgia?
I don't keep up with the Secretary's correspondence. I do know that there are many Republicans who have thanked us for staying true to the process and following the law, because we are a nation of law, not a nation of men, and we will continue to do so. Right now, it's a time when I know that emotions are high. The president is obviously a fighter, and he has every recourse to follow the due process afforded to him under our Constitution and under state laws, under federal law. I anticipate that we will see lawsuits. I know one was just dismissed in the Southern District of Georgia yesterday, I believe. Lynn Wood has a lawsuit in right now. It will go through the process. I don't believe that it will necessarily yield anything, but I'm not a lawyer. And, we will allow the courts to do their business, and we will continue to follow the state law until a court says, but deviate from the plan we're on right now. So our plan we're on right now is finish the audit, certify the results, get the UACAVA ballots mailed out for January 5th, and then really look out for anybody coming from California or New York or Florida or anywhere else coming to our state to try to vote. Because that's the next big step that's going to be happening. We've seen, social media and other people trying to do those kind of things. And as I've said before, if you come and do that, it is a 10-year prison sentence potentially and a $100,000 fine. It is a felony, and it is a big one. So I wouldn't recommend risking it. So I think once we talked about that, Mr. Yang kind of backpedaled from his original moving to Georgia, I'm just going to campaign in Georgia. And it is everybody's right to come and First Amendment right to come and campaign. And like I said in the conference the other day, if you were moving to be part of the #1 state in Georgia in the country to do business, there's the state of Georgia. We are happy to have you. If you want to rent a house, start a business, buy a home, and be an actual resident here, that's fine. But don't come here to try to game our system.
Kate Tobin has had her hand up for a while.
Hey, Kate.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so I just want to make sure I understand the county and the state sort of certification rules here. So Floyd certified their results last Friday, and now they have turned up these additional ballots. And so there's an established process for them to amend their certification with new numbers.
Correct.
Now, Georgia is going to certify on Friday. Is there also a process in place for you to amend your numbers if another county turns out to have had a problem, or if your Fulton investigations yield something you can update your numbers after Friday?
As I understand it, once we certify and get those ballots out, I don't know of a path that allows for that, but I'm not the lawyer. That might be a better suited to Ryan Germany, our general counsel. But our intent is to follow our rules, which is everybody ought to be done. Everybody ought to have their stuff certified, and then we will certify their final numbers. I don't foresee a situation that would potentially change the thing or have us not certified by Friday, barring a court telling us don't certify by Friday. That is the intent, and that is the goal.
Okay, so under normal circumstances, state certification is it. Once you certify, that's that.
Did you just throw the word normal out for some reason? I mean,
Not these circumstances, but in the past, when you've certified, that's the end.
correct.
Okay, understand. Thank you.
Thank you.
Emil Moffitt.
Hey, good morning, Gabe. Question for you regarding Senator Graham's claims. Wouldn't a higher rejection rate mean that the system of signature verification is actually working?
One would potentially think that, yes. I mean, what we saw is in Fulton, they did have a higher rejection rate this year than they had in 18 individually. And we saw on the provisional side a similar thing. So as near as we can tell, the system is working the way it's intended. And potentially maybe what they were really thinking was a lower rejection rate compared to what they thought might have been necessary. So yeah, that's sort of backwards math on that. I think you're right. A higher rejection rate would probably show, the system's working the way it's supposed to. An incredibly low one would show that there might be a problem. But the thing is, it's incredibly low in general because most people are getting their signature matches done and the counties are doing their jobs properly, as near as we can tell. We've had no specific instance of people saying, I know signature match what's being done improperly at this point. If any evidence of that does come up, we will obviously, vigorously go after that and try to bring it before the state election board with our investigators. Because the whole point of this is we want evidence. Going on Twitter, going on Facebook, and making claims is not providing evidence under a nation that is, directed by laws. There is due process in this country. And if people want to go through a discovery process and they have evidence, they can file a suit and do those things. And we're still in that time. The president has every right to follow all of his, due process to come to a point where, he can say he's exhausted his efforts on this front.
Thanks, Gabe.
Thank you.
Nicole Carr.
Hi there. Do you all have any active investigations into election worker harassment or intimidation in any of the counties?
I can't speak to that directly. I do know that we had some people who were, I know one particular one in Fulton, but again, that goes down to a more local level of the sheriff's office providing security on some of those fronts. Our main state, we investigate things around the state election board rules and around election law. Harassment and intimidation is really a more strictly law enforcement kind of scenario. So I would think most of those questions would be directed down to the local sheriff who's supposed to provide security for the elections themselves, or the police departments where the people are residents.
Nick Wooten.
Hey, Gabe, had a process question for you.
Process, exciting.
Yeah. So you've mentioned that this audit is not going to change sort of the actual vote tally or vote count. Like we're going to certify whatever the counties have found.
Right.
Floyd County seems like an exception because they found so many ballots that were sort of left. What's the certain threshold for when a county sort of has to come in?
Something like this, the whole point of the audit is to, find issues. And what they're doing is they're going to go through and recertify this one because they're missing those ballots from the totals. If it gets to a point, I don't have a thing in it's just kind of like Justice Black's, I know it when I see it. So this particular one was obvious. It's obvious they have to get those returns in. It's obvious they have to get those put into the election night reporting so we can split them over the precincts and follow state law. So I don't foresee anything along these lines. Like I said before, it's one or two. And the thing is, we don't necessarily know from what precinct those are because they're not tied back to those things originally. So that's kind of the issue you're at with those right now. So again, we know it when we see it. This is obvious, and we will work with Floyd County to get their recertification done in time for us to do our state certification. So those final tallies will be part of the final certification of the state results.
Okay, thanks. Perfect.
Yeah. I think Justin's up next, isn't he, Walter?
Yeah, Justin.
Hey, yeah, just to be very clear about these Fulton investigations, can you describe if there is any evidence of significant wrongdoing in Fulton? We're hearing so many kind of conspiracy theories out there, so I want you to be very clear about what you're seeing in Fulton and what you're actually investigating.
What we're seeing in Fulton right now is managerial sloppiness, which opens the door for potential problems. If you're not doing your chain of custody properly, that's the kind of thing that can lead to potential issues of somebody saying, hey, these ballots were left alone, or these ballots, who knows what happened with those ballots. Similarly, with the issue around the State Farm toilet leak, water leak, whatever you want to call it, how that was handled on the chain of custody side at the beginning of the morning, because we knew about it at 5:30 that morning, kind of broke that night. So there are stories out there where they sort of combined the water leak story with they asked the observers to leave story, which were really, I think, about 17 hours apart. So they don't really tie together on that front. But managerial sloppiness, failure to attention to detail, those are the things that open the door to issues. I mean, one of the things I talked about here, which was specifically in the consent decree, is they said they were enter credit for voting in a timely manner. By not doing so, that upped the provisional votes, and people were confused. They said, I don't know if my absentee ballot was received or not. So it leads to confusion. It leads to problems. So that's where that's coming from on that front. And that's what we're specifically investigating.
And just to be clear about the observers, because I know you and I were talking about it that night, and you were saying your people were there, they were watching. Can you clear that up for me again?
We had a monitor there, but the way State Farm was set up, there was multiple rooms for things in some cases. And our investigator went there once we had an investigator there who had left, and we sent somebody back. So there may be a time period where not everything was looked at one time. And that's what we're trying to get down to. That's why we're looking at the video from State Farm and trying to get down to what exactly the timeline was and making sure that there was an observer there. And if there wasn't, then we have to account for why that was and who made those decisions internally at Fulton to say it's time for you people to go. So that's what we're trying to get to right now, is the truth of that. Because as you said, there's a lot of stuff flying around on Twitter and Facebook that is, touches fact, but doesn't necessarily have all the facts or the evidence. And that's what we're trying to get to.
Okay, Nicole Carr.
Hey, I'm sorry. I had a quick follow-up to the question about elections workers. If harassment or threats tie back to observers, does that fall within your office?
I don't know. It may, but I have to check with our general counsel and our chief investigator to know for certain. So we'll try to follow up with you later today about that. Okay, Nicole?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Archith.
Archith, come on. Yes.
Hey guys, sorry. Hey Gabe, sorry. I just had to restart real quick. We just got a little update from Senator Lindsey Graham. You might have touched this before. How does the Secretary of State respond to that? There's sort of this back and forth.
I didn't hear what it was. Let me see. I responded to this earlier if you want to get the recording on that one. Basically, I was on the call as well, and there were process questions, but it looked like they were going down a path to try to say if there's a county that has, an out of proportion amount of ballots let through or cancel or whatever, you can question the entire count because they are separated from each other. That was sort of the process conversation that we were having. And I had to jump off the call partway through because I was getting ready for another interview. But again, Secretary Raffensperger, I believe, I know that's the way he perceived that when he and I talked about that. And I'm sure Senator Graham is perceiving it his way, but going down the path of potentially saying entire counties need to be redone there's no path for this office to do that. There is a path within a court of law to try to do that. So I think that was kind of the discussion that was had on that front, but it's not something we would think would be a good or rational way to do election administration after the fact, because these counties have apparently, from our point of view, from what we have seen, done their jobs appropriately, done the signature match, which has actually been enhanced by this office with extra tools, and having the online portal, which has a driver's license thing, which makes it a objective identification versus a subjective identification.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Josh Letterman hadn't asked a question.
Hey, thank you guys for doing this. Can you walk us through how, if in Floyd County, if you had not had this unprecedented hand recount of every single vote in the state, if and how this problem would have been detected, and how you would have resolved it?
I'm not sure right now because the problem was they have several things that happened to them. Their number one director is on COVID quarantine. Their number two person fell and broke her hip on election day. So they're down to the number three person and a volunteer, as I understand it, who are running that office right now. How it would have been discovered? I don't have a good answer for that right now. And that's one of the things we're gonna have to look in our own processes and systems, because most counties, they keep track of their memory cards. They keep track of these things. And what happened was on October 24th, a scanner had an issue. They replaced the scanner, and the plan was to rescan those ballots. And it looks like those ballots were taken, they were segregated, they were put to the side, they were sealed in a box, they had a number on them, and apparently they may not have been scanned. And that's what we're trying to investigate to get the real details on, because that's from talking to our vendor and some of the basic information on the ground is that October 24th, there was a log mismatch. And that means the scanner can no longer function properly. And normally how it happens is they powered it down wrong. They basically held it down. There's two memory cards in every one of the polling place scanners. If they power it down by holding the button down for too long, basically it writes on one card and never gets a chance to write on the other card. So when you turn it back on, the cards don't match. It says, hey, these cards don't match. Something is weird. And that's why they had to go through and look at rescanning all those things, because it looks like they probably powered it down wrong, but we haven't had a full investigation on the log files on that just yet. But that happened on October 24th, and that's when it was replaced, and they were supposed to take those ballots and rescan them on the central scanner. They had issues. I mean, as I pointed out in our conference yesterday, some of y'all may not have been on it, this county had some issues in the August runoff where they did not follow the SEB rule of having 10% of emergency ballots in place. They didn't move to the normal backup plan, which is to use ballot activation codes. Now we have this managerial issue. So there's problems within that office, which is why the secretary was asking for the director of that elections division to step down. It's just the managerial issues are just too great at this point. Yeah, follow up?
Yeah. Do you have any indication of whether he's going to accede that call to step down?
I do not personally. We've been trying to get in touch with him for about 2 days. And like I said, he is in COVID quarantine. He did not respond to our elections director calls for about 2 days. So we were kind of left to kind of figure it out and have our people on the ground and work with his county elections board to get this resolved.
Okay, one follow-up question from M. Walker.
Sorry, Gabe, just a couple of quick follow-ups regarding Floyd County, Gabe. You said that all of those the early votes will be rescanned and there will not be a hand recount after?
Correct. I mean, the audit's already been done of the ballots they had, so there was no need to do an audit after the fact.
Okay. And do you expect the Trump campaign to request a recount, because you have obviously procured new machines, high-speed machines for all the counties?
Well, we procured those, months ago before that came up, because we kind of looked at what happened in 2018 and said, there will be a point in the future. Little did we know it would be this year where somebody's going to be within a half a statewide. It is their right to do so. This hand recount is or hand audit is unprecedented. It will verify that the scanners, put out results that are based on the human readable portions of the ballots, which, helps to quell some of those thoughts and those wild claims that machines were flipping votes and they weren't counting votes properly. I mean, right now we're saying the machines counted the votes absolutely as they were voted by voters.
And lastly, on the consent,
and it is their right to ask for this recount. And I explained at the beginning of the call how that recount would work if it was requested.
And lastly, on the consent decree, because President Trump has been tweeting a lot about, claims that signature verification isn't happening because of this consent decree. It has nothing to do with signature verification happening at the audit level. It only has to do with the time that a voter has to cure his or her signature, correct?
It's not even the time they have to cure, it's the time of notification from the county. That's the main thing that was changed based on that consent decree. Essentially, the historical way the law works is you have 3 days to notify people, and that was pretty consistent all the way through. This lawsuit, we settled to basically say if it's within 11 days of an election, you have to notify them within 24 hours. Because as you get close to the election, obviously, You have up to 3 days after the election to cure a ballot. So if you do it early, you have a month and 3 days. But as you get close to the election, the intent is to let people know more quickly so they can get it cured as it goes into that logistically tougher time for counties to get done. So that was the thing that was changed in this consent decree. It did not weaken signature match. It did not say you can only have to go back to the original signature you had, because the whole point is the signature on the request is already matched back to the original signatures you have on file. Right. So it's a canard. It's a rabbit hole. I know people want to find a way to help the president win because they are strong supporters and he's a fighter till the end, I know, and they can follow the law and all their due process to get to that point. But this particular issue has zero to do with how the audit works. It has zero to do with signature. We didn't change anything in signature match other than we did extra training and gave people more time to give the notifications to give them more time to cure their ballots. So you're correct.
And those absentee ballots, once it's separated from the envelope, on the absentee ballot, there is no way to identify who the voter is. There's no ID number, nothing. It's just all you see is what votes.
Yeah, I mean, literally, when you have the outer envelope that has signature on it, inside that is something called a secrecy envelope. So that way, when you take the envelope that's been signed, you put it over here, you then stack the secrecy envelope over there, and there is never a way to go back and find the individual voter attached to that, because that would be against the state constitution of Georgia, which protects the right to privacy of every vote and every voter. If there was some mechanism by which to do that, we could get to the point of vote buying again. And we can't have that. It's the reason you can't take a picture inside a polling location. So that is the reason that's done that way. But there is no way to tie a ballot back to the original signed envelope.
Okay. Next, we have Amy Gardner.
Thank you. Hey, Gabe. I have a couple of really small questions. First of all, how many ballots are you thinking were affected by this chain of custody issue that you talked about at
No idea. No idea. That's why we have to do an investigation.
I mean, is there an upper limit that it could be based on what was there?
Well, let's see. If it's absentee ballots in Fulton County, I don't know the number off the top of my head. But those are the ones we'll be talking about on the chain of custody side right now. And the other side of it, it's not just absentees. There's two different things that happen at State Farm Arena. There's also the ballots that were the early vote ballots. And I'm not sure if that's included in the same thing. This is from our monitor who was tracking a lot of these issues, and he has several pages of reports on some of this stuff. So that's part of the concerns we have coming out of that.
Okay, thanks. And then you said earlier that you are hoping to have exact numbers of how many counties had perfect audit numbers compared to the original count. Do you know now how Fulton did?
No, I do not. I think they're still going through their quality control process because obviously they have hundreds of thousands of ballots. So that will likely be tomorrow before we're finished with them.
Okay, and then following up on the question I think that Miles asked about what would change and what wouldn't change in the certified numbers based on the audit. So I just want to make sure I understand correctly. You're not going to change numbers if it's like a discrepancy of 1 or 2 votes because you can't segregate it by precinct. Is that correct?
That's part of the rationale. And also our law doesn't allow for it. In some states, the audit results then become, if it moves to a full hand audit, they become the final results. In our state law, it doesn't contemplate that. Now we may look at changing that with the legislature in January, but as of this point, it does not. So that's one. 2, it does report by precinct, and the Arlo outputs do not have precinct level data, so we wouldn't be able to certify the way we traditionally have certified. So it makes more sense to have the audit do its job, which is to verify the winners of the contest. And
so what do you do about the number that you do want to change in Floyd? If you can't,
they're going to recertify inside of our system,
but not by precinct.
They're going to rescan all their stuff. And then they're going to back out the stuff they put into election night reporting and RTR and put it back in with the new results. They will then certify that, and then we will certify that final result.
Can they do that by precinct level? Do they have multiple precincts in Floyd County?
Yes, because when you have early votes, they're done on the ballot marking device. So there is a ballot. We know from whence the ballots come.
Got it.
That's how that works. All the early vote is done that way. There's a code inside of the QR code. It basically says the ballot styles tie back to precincts. Those feed into the election management system, which then feeds it back out to the election night reporting system by precinct. Does that track for you? Okay.
We've got time for one last question, and Kelly Myers had her hand up.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Hi, I'm Kelly Meyer. I'm with Nexstar Media Group as well, but here in the DC Bureau. So I'll focus this one back to conversations around Graham. I just wanted to ask, should this conversation or call even be happening with the senator from South Carolina? Should a senator from South Carolina be involved in Georgia's election affairs and results and conversations like this?
I think that in the United States, we have our freedom of speech. And if Senator Warren called, I think we'd probably take the call to have a conversation to answer questions about our process and what's happening in Georgia. There's no need to not have those kind of questions. Everybody on that call was a Republican probably, but I answer questions from Democrats all the time, and I don't see anything necessarily wrong with that. Senators, I believe, they represent their people and they are trying to understand the processes here. And he asked some questions that might have gone, a little to the edge of something that people might have said, well, why is he asking this kind of questions? The secretary heard it that way. There were process questions. We did suggest that there was nothing within our law to let anything like that happen, but they can go do their due process and go to a court to ask for those kind of things. And that's what the president has every right to go to court to figure out what is the best path to make sure that their vote is protected. And we understand that. And there's nothing wrong with going to court on some of those things, but you need to have evidence. And so far, we haven't seen that kind of evidence that would require anything to be done to not certify our election results. So our intent is to continue to follow state law, get the audit done on time, and then certify our results and get the military and overseas ballots out the door on Saturday.
Did what Graham had to say concern you or alarm you at all, or that he was seemingly to go down that road?
At this point, I don't get that alarmed. I mean, right now we're answering process questions. I'm answering all your process questions. We're answering his process questions. The whole point, we've been saying since really Tuesday night and Wednesday day, we're going to follow the process. We're going to follow the law. We're going to be transparent. If somebody has a question, we're trying to answer it. And that's true of Senator Graham, and that's true for you. So we are here trying to do our jobs as openly and transparently as we can. And as y'all might have seen in my first press conference on Wednesday, I basically said, I can't believe I punched y'all out. So because we answered every question that was asked. So we're trying to do that still. We have another conference coming up at 4:00. I again want to thank everybody for being on the call today. If you have any follow-ups, please follow up with Walter or Ari. We'll try to get you any answers. And I know we said we had a couple of questions we're going to try to answer by the 4:00 call, but we'll do our best to get those answers together. I know Nicole had one, and Amy, I saw you raising your hand, so we'll try to get back with you. But again, thank you for what you do. And please, we'll see you at 4:00 and get your questions ready for another exciting Georgia election update. So thanks a lot, guys.
Georgia's election process and results under a national microscope. The evidence of that hour-long detailed update from Gabriel Sterling with the Secretary of State's office. So let's walk through those biggest headlines because there was so much information. He said there is nothing that indicates that they're finding any evidence, even in Floyd County, that would change the outcome of the presidential election in Georgia. Mr. Sterling also said it will not impact the Senate runoffs at this point. The point of that tedious and laborious work that's happening in our state right now, he said, is to give Georgians faith that the winner declared is in fact the winner in Georgia. He says the vast majority of counties are only finding maybe a vote here or there that are even in question. The state has now already retallied 4.7 million votes of the 5 million votes cast. They expect to make their deadline to complete the audit. There are going to be investigations in Fulton County about the water leak and some potential questions with what Mr. Sterling called bad management. As far as the 2,600 votes the audit uncovered in Floyd County, it looks like it was an issue with a scanner, and that is being investigated. Those votes in Floyd County, heavily Republican county, gave the president a net gain of 778 votes. So as it stands at this moment, the president is still trailing President-elect Joe Biden in Georgia by 13,378 votes. All right, a lot to unpack here. The Secretary of State's office All focusing right now on Floyd County. We want to take it now to Tracy Amick-Peer, who has been spending the morning there as they have been trying to uncover what happened. It was interesting, Tracy, to hear Mr. Sterling talk about the fact that their #1 election official is in COVID quarantine. The #2 person in charge broke a hip on election day. So right now leading the charge there is a volunteer in the #3 position.
That's right. And right now there are 5 Democrats and 5 Republicans inside here counting by hand affidavits. Now they're still trying to figure out why more than 2,600 early voting ballots were not counted in Floyd County in the November 3rd election. They want to find out if it's only this precinct that had the problem by counting all early voting ballots cast and all the affidavits or early voting paperwork filed to see if those numbers match up. Now we spoke with Melanie Conrad, who's a member of the Floyd County Board of Elections, and she says they think the problem was with the scanner at this early voting location. It went down and thousands of the ballots ended up not getting scanned in and counted.
At this point, we know that we had trouble with one of the scanners at this location, so that is our first step to figure out if that's first place to look to see if that's a problem. I can tell you right now, Dominion is working with us, and we should have a more definitive answer shortly as to what the problem was.
Now they hope to have the hand count finished by late this afternoon. Of course, there have been calls for the Chief Clerk of Elections, Robert Brady, to step down. Conrad would not speak to that, but she does say they have a meeting with the executive board to discuss a personnel issue coming up on Thursday.
All right, Tracy, I know you'll keep following that for us. Thank you so much. Let's go back to a point that Gabriel Sterling mentioned, providing some details on 2 separate investigations into election management in Fulton County. One is about how the county handled a situation there when a pipe burst, remember, at that State Farm Arena in a room near where the ballots were being counted. It slowed down the count there by about 2 hours. The state is also looking into a concern about poll monitoring. The state has pulled video, it says, from State Farm Arena to see if votes were scanned during about an hour-long, maybe hour-and-a-half-long period where monitors were not present. Time is running out for counties to complete the retally and get those results back to the Secretary of State's office. There is a deadline they are working on. While counties like Fulton and DeKalb have now finished, others are racing to beat Wednesday's midnight deadline. Joe Ripley is live at Gwinnett County Election Headquarters. And Joe, the work there continues to go on. Do you feel like, from what you're hearing on the ground, they're going to meet the deadline there?
Yeah, the word that Gwinnett County officials used to describe it was confident. They are confident that they will finish their work in time for that 11:59 p.m. deadline on Wednesday. You step out of the way so you guys can see the work going on into day 5 here in Gwinnett County at the elections office that these folks are doing. We've seen less and less counting, more and more entering of that data into the Secretary of State's site and system. Counties now have about 36 hours to meet that deadline. Election workers here still have to finish counting a few paper ballots today, we are told. The workers have focused more on data entry, where the sorted and retallied results are then put into the Secretary of State's system. That process is going to continue today, but it will happen as votes are counted. So even if the count and data entry labor into tomorrow, officials say they are sure they'll meet the deadline before midnight Wednesday.
I trust the system, the voting processes and practices, the individuals who work in elections. We want to do it right, and we want to do it effectively.
A similar issue in Cobb, where most of the counting there is done as well. They are focused on that data entry process as well. In Cobb County, a team of voter review panels are meeting to go over about 5,000 of the provisional ballots and some duplicate ballots. They're still working on that in Cobb and Gwinnett County.
Joe, I just see everyone there working behind you. We just want to take a moment to thank all the election workers who have had a very long and stressful number of weeks. Thanks a lot, Joe. Clayton County just confirmed a few minutes ago they have completed their audit this morning. For the latest on the Georgia election retally, you'll find it on 11alive.com. The story is right there on the front page. President-elect Joe Biden is expected to name key staff positions today as he moves forward with his transition. Still on Monday, Biden making it clear his patience is running out with President Trump's refusal to concede the election. Here's NBC's Kristen Welker.
President-elect Joe Biden is venting his frustration with President Trump's refusal to concede the election, depriving him of critical resources and briefings, including on COVID-19.
I find this more embarrassing for the country than debilitating for my ability to get started.
It follows President Trump's comments over the weekend, tweeting that Biden won the election, then trying to walk that back. The president-elect trying to increase pressure on congressional Republicans who've not yet urged the president to concede.
I will work with you. I understand a lot of your reluctance because of the way the president operates. And if it has to wait until January 20th to get actually become operational, that's a shame, but maybe that's the only way to get it done.
Still, there are new cracks emerging in the president's wall of support, with his own national security advisor, Robert O'Brien, acknowledging Biden as the winner in remarks made last week and released Monday.
Look, if the Biden-Harris ticket is determined to be the winner, and it's, obviously things look that way now, we'll have a very professional transition from the National Security Council.
It all comes amid stunning allegations by Georgia's Republican Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, who told the Washington Post he had been pressured by fellow Republicans, including South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham, to question the validity of legally cast absentee ballots. Raffensperger telling the Post it's all in an effort to reverse President Trump's narrow loss in Georgia. Raffensperger says he and his family are even getting death threats over it. On Monday, NBC News asked him why he's calling out members of his own party.
Well, when people are out there making bold-faced lies, you just have to call it out with facts.
Graham has denied that he applied pressure to Georgia's Secretary of State.
I want to find out how you verify a mail-in ballot signature, and that was the extent of the conversation.
Another GOP heavy hitter coming to our state to campaign for Georgia's two incumbent U.S. senators. Vice President Mike Pence is scheduled to be in Georgia on Friday. He'll headline two Defend the Majority rallies with Senators David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler. Both are facing runoffs, as you know, in January. The first rally is in Canton at the Cherokee Conference Center, the second in Gainesville. Promising updates in COVID vaccine trials, what it means in the fight against the virus, and when your family could potentially have access.
Let's start with a viral message going around. Quote, vast majority of people who died had ibuprofen Advil in their system. This message is fake.
We just bought 20 dust masks for $97.
Are you doing this to help people, or are you doing this to make money, or both?
Both. Take this email sent to the Verify team. Is it safe to have your house cleaned by outside workers? The best practice is to limit guests to emergencies only.
We know things are changing every day, but we're here with you. Continuous COVID-19 coverage during prime time. We're committed to giving you facts, not fear. On 11Alive News Primetime, weeknights from 8 to 11 on WATF.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Today at noon on 11Alive.
We are seeing that lack of smell or altered taste can be a symptom.
We answer your coronavirus-related medical questions. Because 11Alive is where Atlanta speaks.
Televised newscasts not enough for you? Get even more at 11Alive's YouTube channel, where you'll find uncut interviews, extended body cam footage, live streams of Atlanta's biggest trials, and more. Subscribe to 11Alive today.
Tased to death by Washington County deputies is speaking out for the first time since Georgia's Supreme Court sent down a new ruling. In 2017, Uri Martin was walking along a road in Washington County when 3 deputies approached him. Martin, who allegedly suffered from mental illness, did not respond to the deputies' commands and he kept walking. The deputies are accused of tasing him several times, leading to his death. Last year, a judge ruled the deputies used reasonable force, but the Georgia Supreme Court has since overturned that decision and sent it back to trial court, which means the deputies could stand trial in Uri Martin's death. His family says they're pleased with the Supreme Court's ruling.
My brother, Uri Martin, didn't have to die this way. I miss his soft speaking voice, his smile, and he was a very talented person. I miss it all. I wish I could have him back, but I know he can come back. And now I just want justice, because my brother didn't have to die like this.
The deputies were fired. The sheriff at the time said it was because they had violated several department procedures. Taking a look now at the numbers here in Georgia, the Department of Public Health says due to server issues, yesterday's numbers took a dip. They're still working to resolve that issue so we have a clear understanding of where we stand. The number of people currently in the hospital is up to date. So let's look at those numbers. The state reporting 24 new COVID patients, bringing our state's total to nearly 1,700 COVID patients in the hospital. Hospitalizations have been steadily increasing over the past 2 weeks in Georgia. Unlike hospitalizations, testing is down significantly. The state reporting around 13,000 new tests yesterday, almost 8,000 lower than our current weekly average of 21,000 tests per day. Tests critical in understanding how much spread there is within our community. Positive news, though, on the COVID-19 vaccine front to share. Moderna announced its candidate is nearly 95% effective. But the questions remain how long it will take for a vaccine to reach you and your family. What would distribution look like? The CDC is now convening a panel to determine where the vaccines will go first. Here's NBC's Miguel Emeguer.
This morning, 2 vaccines ahead of schedule and more effective than scientists ever thought they would be. Moderna and Pfizer could roll out 70 million doses worldwide in the coming weeks.
These are early days. This is about as good as one could hope to see.
Both vaccines require 2 doses. Here in the U.S., officials say a little more than 20 million people could get their first shot before the end of the year. Here's what we know so far. While states will decide how to roll out the vaccine, the National Academy of Medicine makes these recommendations. Phase 1A includes high-risk Americans like healthcare workers and first responders, and there's currently not enough doses for them. Phase 1B covers those with underlying medical conditions and seniors living in group settings like nursing homes. Phase 2 covers critical workers like those in the food supply system, teachers, and those over 65. Phase 3 includes most young adults and children. Phase 4 protects everyone else. Both vaccines need FDA emergency authorization. Details and dates remain unclear. Moderna's vaccine, for example, was not tested on children. Questions also remain over vaccinating pregnant women and infants. This morning, what could be America's best shot at a return to life as we once knew it.
Miguel Almaguer reporting there for us. A poll conducted after the Pfizer announcement but before the news from Moderna yesterday found 60% of Americans say they are likely to get the COVID-19 vaccine. The U.S. government hopes to provide those vaccines free of charge, many of those possibly distributed at local drugstores. Testing for Moderna's vaccine is happening right here in Metro Atlanta. Volunteer Renee Cottrell signed up for the trial. She says she's confident in the work Moderna and Emory are doing, but she still isn't letting her guard down as infection rates rise.
I work in retail and I wear my mask all day long except when I'm having my lunch, and so do all my coworkers, and we require everyone that comes in here to.
So what happens next here? Moderna plans to seek emergency authorization once it gathers a little more data, and they are still investigating the full side effects of that vaccine.
12:17 is the current time. It's cool on the outside. Hopefully you like it like that. Temperatures are down into the 60s, even some 50s out there as well. 59 degrees in Marietta, 55 right now in Canton, 52, the cool spot up there in Blairsville, 60 in Atlanta, 63 degrees in Edenton, 64 over toward Athens. They have been warmer as of late. I think we'll get up to about 63 degrees for a high temperature here in the metro area. Give it a 10 out of a possible 11, keeping in mind that we should be around 64, 65 degrees for an afternoon high. So we're getting closer, getting closer. Don't get used to it though. A cold front is coming through. It's going to reinforce that cool shot of air. So by tomorrow, temperatures will be back down into the 30s and the 40s, especially in the morning. Look at this. Yeah, freeze warning in effect. And you can see all the counties here shaded. This is an update from the National Weather Center Service. So we're looking at a freeze warning tonight, which means temperatures will be dropping down into the 30s and the 20s out there. And so that means you need to protect your plants. If you can't bring them inside, you want to cover those up, maybe with a sheet or a paper bag. That'll do it. That will do it. You are looking at, well, fair skies over us. Not much going to be taking place here over the next couple of days. High pressure has moved in, and so we're sitting pretty. That cold front I was thinking about, very dry. No rain associated with it. There's a look at it right there, and it will slide a little bit further down to the south. And so temperatures will be slightly cooler tomorrow than they will be today. And again, with the temperatures falling tonight down into the 20s and 30s, we have that freeze warning that's out there. All right, we've been talking about Iota, Hurricane Iota, major hurricane this late in the season, Category 5 at one point, has made landfall last night actually over northern parts of Nicaragua and continues to push further inland. You can see how it's starting to dissipate just a little bit. Typically when hurricanes make landfall, they lose what feeds them, that warmer waters, and so they start to dissipate. And so that's what we're seeing now. Winds down to 75 miles per hour. They were up to 160 at one point, right? Down to 75 miles per hour, so barely a hurricane, holding on to that hurricane status at this particular hour. Moving to the west at 12 miles per hour, so it has picked up some forward speed. Now we'll continue to slide to the west, eventually downgrading to a tropical storm and eventually just an area of low pressure once it gets over to San Salvador, and then eventually it will slide right on off into the ocean. Now whether it will redevelop in the Pacific, well, that's yet to be seen. So we'll watch that, of course, but of course that won't be affecting us at all as it continues to slide further away. But you will be hearing about a lot of destruction, damage, and maybe even the loss of life down there as they had a 1-2 punch. Remember, Ada hit the same areas before moving further up to the north. All right, here's our forecast track model. You can follow along with the time. Get out of the way above my head there. Here is the nothing much going on over us again, but the high pressure in control. Will be fine, folks. We had that front move through, but again, it's not going to bring us any clouds, not going to bring us any rain at all. It's just going to reinforce that cool shot of air. So Wednesday, you're looking at sunshine, but temperatures only near 60 for the high temperature. Again, on Thursday, temperatures in a lot of spots only getting up into the 50s for highs. We'll still have those very chilly starts in the morning with temperatures down into the 20s and 30s. But notice how we get into Friday, how some clouds start to work back into the forecast area as we get more into an easterly and southeasterly flow. It will also help to boost those temperatures as well. Take a look. 7-day outlook shows today 63, but by tomorrow, again with that cold front passing, temperatures start off down in the 30s. We'll get up to 61 for the high. 36 for a start temperature on Thursday morning. We'll only make it near 60 for the high temperature. Then we start to rebound a bit as we head into Friday. Now, we're not going to lose much of the sunshine. There'll be a few extra clouds pushing into the forecast area, but you're looking at 68 for the high on Friday. Saturday, we'll get up to 70 for a high. That's going to give us those 11-alive days I was just mentioning. You like it to be a little bit warmer, right? With the sunshine around. As we head into Sunday, you'll notice even more clouds coming in. We'll call it partly sunny skies. 71 will be our afternoon high temperature, and then our chance for rain comes. We'll have another front move closer to the area. It looks like a lot of the rain will start to break up before it gets to us, but mainly our northern counties, maybe up in the North Georgia Mountains. You may see a sprinkle or two from this. Only a 20% chance for that rain with temperatures right near 70 degrees by Monday. Cheryl, back to you.
All right, Chesley, we'll enjoy the sunshine for now. Thanks, Chesley. An odd shortage ahead of Thanksgiving. Small turkeys proving difficult to find. We'll explain why next.
We know things are changing every day, but we're here with you. Continuous COVID-19 coverage during prime time. We're committed to giving you facts, not fear. On 11Alive News Primetime, weeknights from 8 to 11 on WATF.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Today at noon on 11Alive.
We are seeing that lack of smell or altered taste can be a symptom.
We answer your coronavirus-related medical questions. Because 11Alive is where Atlanta speaks.
Televised newscasts not enough for you? Get even more at 11Alive's YouTube channel, where you'll find uncut interviews, extended body cam footage, live streams of
Thanksgiving is just over a week away. This year, health officials are urging people to pass on the traditional large family gatherings as COVID-19 cases are going up quickly around the country. And it's led to an unusual dilemma, a run on small turkeys. NBC's Carrie Sanders has more.
I was just interested in ordering a turkey for Thanksgiving, but I saw on your website that they're all out of stock, so I just wanted to check.
We may have some more available next week.
But you're pretty much sold out?
Pretty much sold out.
At Crazy Heart Ranch in Fellsmere, Florida, their smaller heritage turkeys are in high demand this Thanksgiving, with the pandemic surging and families opting for smaller, safer gatherings.
I have way more hens than I have toms, and so we have more smaller turkeys.
Because the hens are just smaller to begin with?
They're about 8 pounds is about what their average.
Americans consume on average 40 million turkeys each Thanksgiving. Turkeys typically weighing about 14 to 18 pounds, and even larger, 20 pounds and over.
Normally we have upwards of 35 to 40 people. This year it's going to look like a little bit different with just the 4 of us.
According to Butterball, the number of consumers who plan to celebrate with just immediate family this year has jumped from 21% to 31%, and finding that right-sized bird may be a challenge.
The size is still, I think, the great unknown. I think it's going to vary from family to family, what their needs are, what their gatherings are. If it's a 3-4 person family.
Turkey farmers anticipating more demand for smaller birds have made changes like slowing feed to limit growth and harvesting earlier for a smaller bird. And many grocery chains are increasing small bone-in and boneless turkey breasts to complement the traditional large turkey options.
With the heritage turkeys, sometimes I tell people to think of it more like a big chicken. Probably the most important thing is don't cook it too long and don't stuff it.
Don't stuff it.
Right, because the stuffing will prolong the cooking time, and these birds are a little leaner, and you don't want to dry your bird out.
All right, are you thinking what I'm thinking? Maybe just because I'm a mom of 4. Leftovers. Larger turkeys can be great because you can still have lots of leftovers. Walmart hoping to help thousands of families ahead of Thanksgiving's holiday, but there is a catch we'll talk about coming up. Today at noon on 11Alive.
We are seeing that lack of smell or altered taste can be a symptom.
We answer your coronavirus-related medical questions. Because 11Alive is where Atlanta speaks.
Televised newscasts not enough for you? Get even more at 11Alive's YouTube channel, where you'll find uncut interviews, extended body cam footage, live streams of Atlanta's biggest trials, and more. Subscribe to 11Alive today.
Let's start with a viral message going around. Quote, vast majority of people who died had ibuprofen Advil in their system. This message is fake.
We just bought 20 dust masks for $97.
Are you doing this to help people or are you doing this to make money or both?
Both. Take this email sent to the Verify team. Is it safe to have your house cleaned by outside workers? The best practice is to limit guests to emergencies only.
We know things are changing every day, but we're here with you. Continuous COVID-19 coverage during prime time. We're committed to giving you facts, not fear. On 11Alive News Primetime, weeknights from 8 to 11 on WATF.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray.
The biggest retailer in the country wants to help pay for your Thanksgiving dinner. There is a little catch here. Walmart partnering with Campbell, Coca-Cola, Butterball, and Ibotta to launch the free Thanksgiving dinner program. It's an effort to feed millions of families. You have to buy certain items and brands like a bottle of Coke, cranberry sauce, stuffing, a few others. Then you can scan your Walmart receipt using Ibotta's app, and they'll verify and refund your purchases. A team of astronauts getting settled at the International Space Station. The crew successfully docked with the ISS late last night after a 27-hour mission. The 4 astronauts, including Victor Glover, were on SpaceX Crew Dragon for its first fully operational mission. Glover is the first black astronaut on a long-term space station mission. The astronauts are set to spend about 6 months in space doing all kinds of research. Thank you for watching 11Alive News at noon. More news comes your way always on 11alive.com, and we'll see you back here for 11Alive News at 5 and 6. Thanks for spending the midday with us and our special report, and again, we'll see you back here at 5. More clear. The things we take for granted, the people we depend on daily. Here at 11Alive, we'd like to say thank you. First responders, medical staff, sanitation workers, truck drivers, postal workers, and every brave Georgian doing their part to make a difference. We see you, we hear you, and we appreciate all that you do.
Let's start with a viral message going around. Quote, vast majority of people who died had ibuprofen Advil in their